Okay.
Warming up. Audio test. 1, 2, 3. Cannot see there. Okay. This is a recorded live stream, which means there'll be the first few minutes where we're just resharing links and not talking to you. But
Yeah.
if you are watching this at a certain point in the future, please do feel free to move forward a few minutes to when the show officially starts. Thank you for watching. Okay, double checking feeds. I see us on Facebook, resharing to our mailing list.
Yeah, I'm in the process of. Oops. Nope. 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 Nope.
Sent to the
I don't
mailing
need. No.
list.
No. 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 It's the. It's the annoying Facebook. Like, I actually click the video, then it launches in the big window. Then okay, I
Mhm.
don't want to watch the video, so I close it. What it does, it puts it in the corner. And like that's not what I wanted, Facebook. And I know it's all to drive that you watch the video long enough that it
Yeah.
qualifies as a video view. And since Facebook can run advertising against 1 to 3 second video views, uh, then it's like it's all these tricks to keep you on the video.
Hmm.
Wow, okay, I'm super sluggish today.
Did you switch parity?
Not yet, but it's Facebook's not saving.
Oh my.
So strange.
So yeah, we'll be officially starting in a few minutes. Just waiting for our viewers since this is a live stream.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I'm like last minute troubleshooting. Okay. Oops.
So on the side, the joys of realizing you have a video editor pre-bundled with your laptop is the
With the laptop.
frustration
Okay.
of learning that a lot of the stuff you want to use
These are
are
paid features.
paid features.
Of course.
And that includes Zoom.
Zooming in.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then in terms of layers for your video and text layers and sound, you're only allowed 4. So I'm like working magic.
Okay. That's stressful. Hey Jed. Hello, hello. What's going on with Facebook? Okay, let's just close that old window and not save changes. And then
Hey Jed. Hey Mark. Sorry we're starting late. I'm actually still working.
yeah, poor Toby. And I didn't know. I didn't want to like bother. Like if it's super priority,
Yeah.
it looks like you're gonna be working on it for a
Work
while.
was crazy. Well, it is crazy. It's not done. So Monday I had my second shot.
Yeah,
Um,
which is good.
what
Hooray for
was
second
this
shot.
Monday? Right? Oh my gosh, there's something there. For your earphones.
Oh yeah.
So Monday I had my shot, which knocked me out for the whole day. I was on leave, so no guilt there. But there was the frustration of that's one day of work I lose.
Mm-hmm.
Today, one of my designers was not feeling too well. He had his vaccination shot the other day. He still kind of was able to work yesterday, but today he was so struggling. And I was like, I completely understand. I was knocked out. But effectively, that means the team sort of lost a day and a half to 2 days.
Mm.
So we're kind of all scrambling now to get things done. Noel's here as well. Hey, Noel. Mark shares. His night has been either this stream or starting on Squid Game. Squid Game is fun.
It's quite good.
It's
We're
okay.
we're towards the end.
Yeah, no spoilers, but a lot of people have been annoyingly comparing it to certain other shows, and they're like, this came first or blah blah blah. And I'm so tempted to go, guys, it's a genre.
There is nothing new under the sun. Horatio.
It's like, someone making a new Romeo and Juliet inspired story and saying Ginaya Romeo and Juliet. That's the point.
Yeah, yeah. But the the way they remix it is interesting. I feel
Yes.
sad though that
Very smart casting, very smart selection of concepts of characters and backgrounds.
I feel sad that Mark and his wife are not watching at the same time.
But we've had that.
Yeah, but there are shows that I think this is definitely one of those shows that it is in the territory
Mm.
of we must watch together. That's
And
our
then
deal
for
for this one.
people who might want something that does have games and like, but is lighter than Squid Game, we would recommend Busted.
Oh yeah, or if you want to go back further, the Genius,
Yes, the genius.
which is just a bunch of people playing games without like life or death consequences.
But it kind
But
of feels like life or
yeah,
death still.
Busted is cool though because there's a pseudo mystery angle to it.
Yeah, Busted feels like you're watching your friends go through a mystery.
Through an escape room.
Yeah, and you're seeing this story unfolding.
Yeah.
Genius, Genius is close enough to the Squid Game
Feel.
with the twists,
Yes, with twists.
minus the gore,
Minus the deaths.
and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. Let's get started.
Okay, I'm going to roll credits, so we'll be right back after these messages.
Oh yeah! Baduy Pride!
This is Toby,
And this is Rocky.
and if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. This Friday, we're talking about a very touchy subject because Rocky hates how I titled it.
Okay, Toby tried to make this week S week. And so
But I was sick on Monday.
we didn't do Seafall
yeah,
as
because I
scheduled.
was sick.
We could randomly do it over the weekend if we want to. Tuesday was smoothie shakes and juices, so it started with S. Thursday was Shire Talk because we were talking about the Lord of the Rings after Hobbit Day. And
I
then
saw that bug too. I
yeah,
was talking myself.
and then today I said let's talk about new media and politics. And then of course Toby wrote it as SOCMED and politics. I'm like, why did you use the word SOCMED? But
It's
it's just so that he could make it the letter S. So that's where we are here now.
Because tonight is as special and it is the last it is right, the last episode of Baduy Pride for September.
No. Because September doesn't end until Thursday next week.
You're right.
So we still
You're
have a
right.
few more episodes.
Sorry,
in
I was
this month.
thinking it was the last weekend. Because next
Ah.
weekend is October already.
But yeah, October
counting-
1
I was
is
counting
Friday.
based on
See,
weekend.
that's a work thing when you're counting by week.
So
So
I was sadly mistaken.
you couldn't find an S word for mistake, huh? That's what you were trying to do. So you just said you're sad about it. Yeah, Toby is clearly stressed and thus needs this episode. All right, so okay.
I have other S words in there.
So obviously this is sprung from the fact that there's a lot of controversy over the likes of Tony Gonzaga interviewing
Ooh,
certain
named her.
political. Oh, I'm gonna name her. They're naming certain political
Yeah.
figures regardless of belief, and then so
There's all these claims that it's her show, so she can
do whatever
talk
she
whatever,
wants.
which is of course the most stupid thing to talk about anything when it concerns um, having something out there in public,
Hmm.
because it never really works that way.
It's not a defense in itself. I mean, by yes, you are entitled to talk about anything that you want to, but then you also must accept the consequences of the
Yes.
criticism.
Mm-mm.
Same thing with us. Like just us taking this conversation today. I wonder if we'll get random people complaining about what we're doing.
And if we do, then yay, we're getting more
More viewers. Okay.
But the point is, we wanted to tackle it because we felt there's a lot to say about it.
Hmm.
But there's also a lot to say about social media in general,
Well, and I
on
think
how it has been part of politics compared to before.
and the segue there also is that was this because one of the weird things that people have brought up in defense of this
More spectators.
defense of this platforming activity is that citing that she's not a journalist. So, and I don't know how that's an answer to anything,
Mhm.
but but since she's not a journalist, then she's all the more free to do whatever she wants. So, and that's a whole weird thing, right?
Mhm.
And then because we are in an age where like us right now, we have a platform,
Mhm.
no matter how, we operate in a certain circle of people,
Mhm.
mostly our dear friends, and we generally share similar
Mhm.
beliefs. But that's still a platform, and we still are communicating a message, and so
Mhm.
we are performing a function that is similar to a lot of other media. And
Yes.
so why the delineation? And at the same time, though, I know that, and this goes back to like when blogging started becoming a
Mhm.
big thing,
Mhm.
and how people could write about whatever they wanted.
Mhm.
And then there was the criticism that they are not being held to a journalistic standard.
Yes.
But to be fair, they also did not study these principles. They didn't go through any
Yes.
training. So, then it's a lot of that. It's a lot of that. Like, at one moment we talk about people, podcasters, bloggers, vloggers, whatever, all these people communicating,
Mhm.
that to some degree they want to be recognized with a certain legitimacy, that they are
Mhm.
still valid, they are still a valid part of a larger conversation.
Mhm.
But then on the flip side, there is the defense that they're not journalists,
Mhm.
so they shouldn't also be subject to certain criticism
Mhm.
or criteria.
And then you'd find it just, it's not even ironic but stupid in the sense that, so she's not a journalist and she doesn't have to be held accountable or responsible for the topic she covers or the thing she discusses. But then someone on social media writing one post about a certain politician, all of a sudden it's libel and all this and that defenses. All of a sudden you can't talk about their salons and this and that. So what the hey, right?
Yeah.
Why do suddenly just posting on Twitter demand so much responsibility, but then a whole show with a budget and all this and that talking about such a controversial topic without sensitivity should get a pass?
Yeah.
It's not. It's just not
So
right.
Mai says that people use their platform should have social responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting point, and we can unpack that a bit
Mm-hmm.
more. And then Mark shares that feels like the quote unquote journalist tag is more important now. Bloggers, YouTubers, the rest aren't journalists, but they kind of position themselves there. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the gray area that like we're trying to figure, like we not figure out per se. I don't think we're
Mm-hmm.
really the best people to do that, but we're gonna try to talk
Well, discuss it.
and discuss it tonight. So
Because unlike certain shows, we don't claim to be experts. We don't expect to be the ones who know the best. We try to look at all the perspectives and discuss it here.
yeah, and and I think that's, but even that, like, is that because to some degree we are consciously or unconsciously trying to adhere to a certain journalistic standard?
Well, we
Are
have
we
to.
hiding into
No, I
behind
mean,
opinion?
you
Yeah.
you have to. You have to be responsible the moment you're at any position wherein you are talking to a larger audience.
Yes.
Whether it's standing on the bus addressing people who are seated there, to talking literally on an apple box, or in the crowd.
What an old timey image.
Yeah, but that's my point. See, when people grab boxes to stand and yell at the crowd, that's basically already
It is literally you have a
speaking
platform.
speaking with a level of responsibility.
Mm.
You are now addressing a broader audience, and your inaccuracies have repercussions. So to not pay attention to that, to not give weight to that on an online platform is idiotic, because online platforms literally go international when in terms of reach.
Yes. And that's why like, and then okay, I don't know where to go. There's so many things to tackle. So on the one front, like, I guess the going back to Tony Gonzaga as a very specific case.
Mm.
So her, I mean, which I feel like is very calculated, that she had a previous interview with Lenny Robredo,
Mhm.
and then she has this Marcos interview,
Mhm.
Bongbong Marcos to be specific, and then shortly thereafter she had the Manny Pacquiao
Mhm.
interview, and the Manny Pacquiao one debuted on the same day that he officially confirmed
Mhm.
his running for president. So it's
I
like
guess that's a coincidence.
it's not there is no such coincidence. Okay, and then I will say thank you, Mark, for trying to add more S words to today's discussion, like segue and soapbox
Mhm.
instead of apple box. Thank you very much. All right, so um, so the was this so and I think that brings up the larger subject of influencers and paid opinion
Mhm.
on the internet, right? So we have a lot of people now. The whole influencer thing, it's easy to just kind of make fun of because
Mhm.
we what do we think of as influencers? The people who try to model clothes that they got for free,
Mhm.
you know, for instant content, or they're constantly going to be talking about whatever. Please try this. I have a promo
Mhm.
code, or all these things. And then there is a lot of effort to like get to drive greater transparency with the influencer segment
Mhm.
because you have a lot of people who are working within their specific social media circles.
Mhm.
And then at sometimes they are paid to express a particular opinion. And
Yes.
then I feel like in this particular case, Tony Gonzaga, despite being a pre-established celebrity
Mhm.
or being a TV personality, in this function though, is probably operating more as what we would term to be as an influencer, as someone on social media with a particular following
Mhm.
who you can totally pay to convey a particular
And
message.
even if you didn't pay,
Yeah.
there is still conflict of interest in terms of being neutral.
Mm.
Um, whether it's because ninong sa ganto at sa ganyan or whatever, when influencers are dealing with matters in that level, they have to have disclaimers. Receive the
Yeah.
product for free,
Yes.
or blah blah blah, or oh, I'm talking about this because my uncle is the one who's releasing this game.
Yeah, that I am
So
now somehow related to this person, or we have a personal relationship outside of this, you
so when
know?
there
Yeah.
are guestings or features, and then there is no such disclosure, but then when you dig online, you see the relationships were there, then it just all the more raises a red flag. Why not be transparent? Why not show these disclosures?
Mm-hmm.
If there was a conflict of interest present, why wasn't it brought up? Or to the very least, why did you push through when you knew already you're clearly going to be showcasing a biased opinion?
So Noel says that bottom line is that you have a platform for influence, so people should have be more aware that the topic they decide to cover will or may put
Mm-mm.
things in audience heads. That's true. Mark says also it's funny when influencers disclose the post is paid only after they've said everything,
Mhm.
and people still differentiate after everything you said.
Yeah, and that's where, those are the loopholes that do exist. But to the very least, whether or not the loopholes are exploited, um, the disclosure still helps.
Yeah, and
Right?
the platforms themselves, to some degree, are trying to catch up. I mean,
Mhm.
like, especially like Instagram and Facebook have opportunities for like declaring it as a paid sponsorship,
Mhm.
it's a paid relationship, and whatever. There are different terms for like when you're working with a brand, paid partnership. When you're
Mhm.
working with brands on social media, and but it's still a question of the people involved implementing it, executing it, declaring it. So the influencer themselves can still toggle it on or off depending on
Mhm.
how professional they are an influencer.
Mhm.
And that's still the challenge. While I don't absolve platform social media platforms from like their responsibility in helping us be more
Mhm.
informed as to what is paid and what is not. Um, but yeah, the onus is still largely on influencers, and it's hard. It's hard.
Mark shares, and I was about to say this as well. It's like those political ads paid for by the friends of blah blah blah.
Yeah,
The irony there is a lot of them are paid for by this organization or this group, but then that candidate is part of that organization.
or
So
clearly
officially,
the
nothing stops that candidate from just, sure, talk about me more, and here's the funds for that.
okay. Um, so Tristan says a lot of followers only for entertainment and not being a critical audience, so they retain their following and make money
Mm-hmm.
anyway, and that's true. And then it's hard to like. I think there's been a lot of discussion of like, should there be some sort of media appreciation education made fundamentally part of our education system at this point. Like it, although it's on the same lines of thought of, and could someone teach us how to do our taxes in school
Yes.
before we graduate
There's a
and
lot
things.
of life skills which never get covered in school, which surprisingly should be. And sometimes I can't help but wonder if someone has considered making like private tutor for taxes, private tutor for getting
Mm-mm.
your car registered and stuff like that.
Yeah, the
Because
things that nobody ever tells you. Then at the same time, I guess, and it's it's one thing to think of like the big influencers with like thousands upon thousands of followers, and those are kind of easier to identify at least because then you know that probably half the things that this person, because they're a model, because they're an actress, whatever, are more likely, endorsements of some sort. But then in social media circles, there's the whole thing known as micro influencers, where there are people who where you can sign up to be part of a larger network,
yes.
and then um, you get you get paid, you're compensated in some way, whether it is just vouchers or it is direct payment or a bounty, whatever. If you create content of a certain degree, because it's done, and it's part of the industry.
Hmm.
It's done to spread a message
Yeah.
further, and then for a brand, kasi uh, it is more cost effective. And then the selling point of micro influencer campaigns is that in theory you're going to get people with smaller following but are more directly related to what you're talking about,
Hmm.
especially if you're a brand with a niche product or service.
Hmm.
And those are a lot harder to spot. They're a lot harder to spot. And then you see this a lot in things like groups that are dedicated to particular interests. Like
Hmm.
you see this a lot, especially in parenting discussion, parenting groups where they discuss everything from infant formula, diaper
Hmm.
brands and stuff. And you'll always encounter those parents who'll be super like, oh, you know, my kid used to get rashes all the time when they used other brands, but then when they started using this brand, it got so much better, and I totally believe them. And they don't mention it to sponsor post, but then they just
Hmm.
write about it, and that's telltale, like micro influencer,
Because
or as Mark helpfully points out, small
you
influencers.
do want to find ways to make it feel like it's an organic reach. You know, there is that distrust or mistrust wherein, you see an ad, you see it's being promoted. Ooh, okay, it's a commercial. I don't want, he just said paid to say that. But then if it's your best friend, your office mate, your roommate, or your old schoolmate who suddenly mentions, oh, I've been using blah, 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 anecdotal, but suddenly you're pulled in. Oh, maybe I
Yeah,
should try it too. Maybe I can. And that's how it works.
yeah. So that's the literal influence that people carry, and they don't necessarily
Mm.
realize that, which is why platforms like Facebook and the like continue to thrive. Is that they bank on our ability to sway one another in our immediate circles, and then trying to figure that out. Um, and that's why, I mean, in recent years, there's been so much controversy and discussion over, you know, these sort of like social media
Hmm.
nudges, whether distinctly paid efforts like ads and promoted posts, or if it is just subtle and more pervasive
Hmm.
like influencer network. It's essentially the digital equivalent of whisper campaigns, but then social media whisper campaigns are way more effective
So
than traditional whisper campaigns.
has I guess to wrap up her, because I don't want her to be the focus of our topic.
Yeah,
Um, has she accepted the invitation from the martial arts museum? Martial arts from the uh,
martial law museum.
martial
Of course not.
law
She doesn't.
museum.
She doesn't have to.
Then, but that's my point. So if it was really all about being open to the stories and this and that, then that should have been already a okay. Then let's talk about that too.
Yeah,
But the fact that there hasn't been just kind of shows you the leanings and intentions behind it,
mm-mm.
and I think that's enough spotlight on that. And let's focus on things in general.
Yeah. So there is the larger challenge of then how do you remain critical, and then okay, then I think, and we can kind of touch on how it's just the very nature of social media platforms now, especially with the different algorithm based
Yes, spotlight.
news feeds, is that what's this? So your feed is based on the way that you interact with social media, then
Mhm.
even what you see in your feed is created by the system,
Mhm.
and it tends to lean towards what you already like and interact with, which
Yes.
turns every person's social media feed into a potential echo chamber.
Mhm.
Like you are most likely to see more of the posts from like-minded or people that that you interact with more, and then people that you don't necessarily interact with as much, therefore the system interprets you don't like,
Mm.
you see less. That's why, like, just following the page of a brand, like a brand page, doesn't mean you're gonna see the brand's posts on a regular basis, especially if you don't interact and you
Mhm.
don't see them. So that's a challenge where um, we're all in our respective little social media bubbles. We hear only the people who seem to behave like us online. And then it's not a great avenue for convincing other people of other sides.
Mhm.
So if you are, regardless of what your political leanings are, let's say if you are an anti-vaxxer, and you don't believe that COVID exists, then because of your behaviors on social media, you will see a lot more content about uh, anti-vaccination
Mhm.
beliefs and stuff. And then you create so it social media's become this weird way to like amplify your beliefs,
Mhm.
but also to concretize and make you stuck where you are.
And it wasn't designed to do that in the sense that it wasn't trying to amplify your beliefs.
Mm.
The main focus was um, in the early days of the internet. The question was what would you want to see,
Yes.
and to cater to that, this is before search engines existed. There were a lot of groups that relied on subscriptions. You're interested in this, join this group, subscribe to us, and then we'll make sure you're part of our mailing list.
Yeah.
The later evolutions formed web rings,
Yeah.
right?
And
So if
and
you're
and
interested, all of you,
directory
yeah.
listings.
So if you're interested, you'll be part of this ring, and then now you're part of the network. You can be part of who's talking about what in this topic. But it was still something you had to actively look for. With search engines becoming more and more optimized, finding information was suddenly now a question not just of whether or not it was talked about a lot, but whether it was relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And with relevancy that came search engine optimization, keywords became more prominent. People started to rely less on subscriptions because then they can just look for what they wanted and pull it out of the blue, which then led to, then why shouldn't the system help you do that even if you aren't asking it? And so it starts creating this database of what your interests are, what you've been searching before, what you've been looking for, and it now starts making sure you get a little bit more of that every now and then.
Yeah. So given that this is how the platforms work, and ultimately the way that this has all been curated, on the one hand, is to make sure that you see things that you like. On the other, it also because it's ultimately to refine ad
Mhm.
targeting, to also make sure that they show you ads that you are
Yes.
most
Yes.
likely going to interact with and that you like. And it's the two systems work hand in hand. Um, and it does make for a challenge. So like my saying, the more you see, read the same information, the more you'll think of it as potentially fact.
Mm-mm.
So that's the risk.
Mm-mm.
So what can you do? And sadly, the main thing that you can do is is to put more effort into getting news. If you largely rely on social media for news, then you are going to mainly hear the same sort of news, the same
Mm-hmm.
sort of opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to ask people to make the effort.
Yes.
Just recently we had a friend who was asking us if we had newspapers for a project.
Mm-hmm.
And like old newspapers. And like, oh my gosh, I haven't subscribed to a newspaper like ever in my adult life. I've always relied online for news. But I'm also the type of person that I will deliberately visit news sites.
Yes.
I don't get to do it every day depending on how busy I am, but I will try to spend time reading news on something. Or if there's a major like if I see a headline or a topic that's being discussed on social media, I will take the time to open 3 to 4 news sites and try to look up the same article or the same topic and see how everybody's covering it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mainly me. As a I used to be in high school debate.
Mhm.
So that was the training that we would call it matter loading. And then so to fully understand a news article, then I'd read it many, many times. I still use Google News, and Google News is great at trying to link multiple articles together
Mhm.
based on a topic. And then even then, like I try to be a little critical about which ones I view. So, um, like as much as Rappler has a lot of popularity in the liberal set, I will dare say that it's a popularity in the liberal side of things. But it still helps to see like so how is the Star covering it? Because sometimes they're conservative, sometimes they're not. How
Mhm.
is the Bulletin covering it? Because they're super dry. Even GMA, as much GMA gets a lot of flack for a lot of like being nice to the administration in recent
Mhm.
years. So I still want to check out what they said versus what ABS-CBN said.
Mhm.
But it's hard. It's hard, and I and it's hard to expect it of anyone. But I feel like it's one of the big things that has to happen that that people need to get into that practice, especially when it comes to the coming elections, because we're
Mhm.
going to see a lot of stuff, um,
A lot of
a
claims.
lot of claims that are going to come out online,
Mm-mm.
and then it just it really helps to verify and see what's going on.
Now
Okay,
there was mention, I think, of my about how there's clickbaity titles, which gets irritating.
but
Sadly,
it's a dog eat dog world.
yeah.
So I mean, like, because uh, news sites are competing with bloggers and whatever independent sites. So if because say they're competing in the same social media space with the same algorithm problems, so clickbait's gonna win.
Mm.
Even for us, it's like what's this? Even for us, it's like uh, Toby's been looking up on like how to better optimize like some of these videos and maybe get more views. And then the headline, the name of the video is so important. It's so important to driving things. Okay. Um, Noel says Rappler's very tabloid now. I share this opinion at times. They've gone full offense. They have a particular slant that is the nature of
Mhm.
their newspaper, but their news reporting. But it's also inevitable because they've been under assault from the government for so long. So I think that that's the only stand they can take. Um, Mark says, going with the newspaper analogy, those with more resource can get more newspapers. Those who cannot rely on the cheaper tabloids and the free newspapers. Yes, that's
Mhm.
still like the challenge, and even the perpetual argument that free Facebook has been a terrible thing. Like because since it's the one site that almost everybody can access for free, then the onus of like whatever news is there has to be okay, but it's never gonna get well policed. Um, Party access, party curiosity, party drive. Okay. Okay. What else? Um, so yeah, we didn't research this to be like a video essay. It's just like we just want to talk about it. So um, so we know social media is like curated,
Mhm.
algorithmically driven to encourage the same beliefs. Uh, it is it's a paid garden.
Mhm.
Um, people can pay to influence what you see in your feed, and then and you have very limited controls over it. Like
Mhm.
i I think I've disabled a lot of the personalized tracking even though I work in a social media world. And then I think at least once a week I go through recent ads I've seen in the Facebook ad
Mhm.
section, and then I one by one select advertisers I no longer want to see, and you're never gonna run out.
Mhm.
You're never gonna run out of advertisers to block, and then especially in peak periods, you're going to see social media entities broadcasting certain things, and it's going to be hard to figure out. Um, yeah, so yeah, Mark's talking about the constraints of free Facebook. Um, uh, there are platform efforts to try to figure this out, though.
Mhm.
Like, was this so Facebook, because they've been on the defense from different governments complaining about the way that they've influenced certain elections around the world.
Mhm.
So now it's like If you are advertising, if you are doing paid advertising related to a political cause or some other thing, uh, they won't necessarily stop your ad, but they will require that you clearly identify
Mm-hmm.
that it's an ad. There's normally additional disclaimers.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a certain degree of transparency that's required.
I just don't know if that's international.
It is. It is. It's a platform. It's a platform thing. So hence my screenshot for today was like was this how PTV4 is clearly labeled as state-owned media,
Mm.
but it's not like super broadcast on every single post. So you can visit any particular page and view their transparency report,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll be able to see if they are putting out ads. If they are putting out ads based around political concerns, you will also be able to know like where the administrators are located, but only for those pages that are participating in political discourse, um, and all these things. And it helps, but the caveat, like many things, is you have to take the effort to go to the page.
Mm-hmm.
um, we've often gone over like like how often do you visit a brand's Facebook page anymore? You most likely wait for their content to appear in your
Yeah.
newsfeed, even if you like the page and follow the page. And that's the reality of it. So it's like it's a consolation effort. Like here we did something, but it's not gonna change things. Um, Noel said loves Apple's feature that asks to allow an app to track you. Work so far, nabawasan ng ads ko after I don't really like. Actually, Noel, what is more likely going to happen is that you're just going to get more generalized advertising instead of personalized advertising. So the iOS 14 improvements do not block ads. They just remove personalized targeting, which which is great for like making sure that the something you viewed on Lazada does not get pushed as an ad to you when you're viewing Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But it also means advertisers no longer know what you like.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll
You
just
may get
send
the
you basic
weirdest
stuff.
things.
Yeah, you're going to get weirder stuff based on the information that Facebook does have
Mm-hmm.
that is not based on behavior, which means your basic demographics, your gender, your age, your location. And so a lot of times you're going to just see ads targeting um, adults in Manila. So it's like good and bad. And I say this as someone who works in the marketing side of things that we can still run ads to you. It's just harder and it's less personalized. Okay. My mentions. Twitter asks if you've read an article before sharing. You can ignore it, but at least it's there. Yeah, I've seen this. It's it's helpful. I think it's helpful. I don't. But yeah, but in terms of behavior, it doesn't stop people from sharing.
And then Facebook also has those when you try to reshare certain things, sometimes it flags it if it's questionable, if it hasn't been verified.
Mm, mm. Yes, yes. Which are all like parts of the larger efforts to Facebook to like show governments that
Mhm.
hey, we did stuff.
We're trying,
We're trying.
trying being the operative word because it's always free in exchange for your personal data.
Yeah, and then especially now, like just look at the way Facebook has been handling COVID. So anytime you talk about COVID or vaccination, within 24 hours, your post will now have a little flag on the bottom that hey, this talks about COVID, and you may want to look at official sources. So I hope that improvements like this though will trickle into the political thing.
Mhm.
So when the elections come around, I wonder what additional flags or measures
But of course,
will be
I'm
added.
already waiting for those who will complain and say, "So Facebook's reading my posts. I don't like that."
It has to happen. Sorry. And it's not a person reading your posts per se to add these flags. It's just
Mhm.
keyword driven. It's a machine. It's an
which
algorithm.
which in its own way has its own problems
Yes.
because then yeah,
Noel just still gets knitting ads.
I'm still getting ads for Little Wolf, which I already finally purchased,
Congratulations.
but the ads still keep appearing both on my email and my Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. So is tricky. Mark was like, wonder if you get flagged like this politician has made false promises in the past. Do you still want to share? Oh, I would love for a flag that specific, but we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and we know that always just points a big bullseye in your family.
Okay. Ooh, sorry. Mai says spreading information is a shared responsibility din naman. And that's true. And I think that's like in terms of like the things that we can actually do. So beyond the need to research on our own and to like try to verify news
Mhm.
reports with multiple sources, like even just 2 to 3 if you can. It's also being responsible about what you decide to share and
Mhm.
what you decide to put out. Uh, um, because there are some weird things, especially okay, blah, blah, blah. Rephrase. Um, that's why like I feel a lot more comfortable when I share links to news sites because then
Mhm.
at least you know to dare say that at least a journalist wrote it, and then it's something that someone can read also on their own and
Mhm.
make their own opinion after reading. It's tricky when it's a lot of like screenshots of other people's posts that they now want you to talk about.
Mhm.
Especially or when you see screenshots of things on Twitter that were brought to Facebook. And so now you can no longer interact with the original source without a lot more effort. The original person who wrote about it has no idea that their post is now circulating,
Mhm.
and you have no control over what slant is added, whether it is in support or critical.
So, Jed mentioned Facebook could help reduce misinformation and inauthenticity if they conceal the likes reaction counts for others. You could still like, but only the poster um, could see the results.
This is an ongoing discussion with the platform. There's a lot of calls to get rid of likes,
Mhm.
and then they're going to be testing this. I know sooner on Instagram and stuff, more because of the concerns for like the ego of young adults and
Mhm.
teenagers based on their social media stuff. But it's one approach. It's one approach. Okay. We're going over comments. Okay. Mine says it's high time to not feel uncomfortable talking about politics on your social media post. I think at this point, yeah, like if you want to exercise your degree of influence,
Mhm.
then then it's yeah, it totally is time to talk about these things because um staying silent for the sake of not wanting to cause controversy, especially among family and friends. Um, it's probably not time for it anymore. Like we
Mhm.
we are where we are because
Yeah.
a lot of us were content or not necessarily content, complacent with thinking that people were smart enough to come to the whatever logical or right decision on
Mhm.
their own. Um, yeah. Okay. But Mark does say it gets tiring because it seems like you're shouting into the void. I mean, that's true. I mean, sometimes even like literally like us talking on this podcast, vlog, live stream, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it. There are days it's like I mean, we appreciate the people who regularly get to join, but then there are times like it's like very few of us, like hey, but we're still gonna do it.
So Mark also shares it used to be a pro tip for good manners to avoid religion and politics in polite discussions.
Yeah.
I think it still is, only because um, I personally wouldn't want, I'm just hanging out and then suddenly someone goes, so let's talk about the elections. And, you know,
It's yeah, it's
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 not,
it's rough.
it's still not something I look forward to. But I do feel we can't anymore just be okay with people. They like dressing it up as, I just have a different opinion. Why are you acting like this and like that? But it's more than just a different opinion. It's a choice to be ignorant. It's a choice to accept things which are not factual. It's a choice to further support something which isn't true and you're just benefiting from because you weren't someone who was affected by it negatively. Worse, I know of people who do know the truth, but know it's easier just to accept the lie because they don't get targeted next, or they don't, get caught in the firing line, and that's
Mm-mm.
that's part of the frustrations about it. Um, you sometimes just have to. You don't think you'll change their mind. You don't think you'll make them see better, but if you then show, then you're not willing to, be okay with it, then hopefully that will at least make them think.
Yeah. So I guess it then it's a question. I guess well, pick your battles.
Hmm.
If there are certain outright falsehoods, things that are just categorically wrong based
Hmm.
on what you know to be true, then it is about time to like engage in that
Hmm.
conversation and um and you know and be prepared and bring bring references, bring clear counter
Hmm.
arguments to that discussion. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to convince anyone. It's like what Jed says at this point. You're DDS or you're DDS, you're Dilaw or you're Dilaw. I mean, people believe what they believe. um but at the very least, especially within your social media circles, assuming your social media circles reflect primarily your friends and family and maybe some of your work
Hmm.
colleagues, um to just make that stand when you need to, and
Hmm.
like and to remind people where you are and that you're not going to stand for it. And I think that's important. So it kind of comes full circle. Like we started talking about like very big influencer
Hmm.
things and the way that they can inadvertently sway the conversation. But at the same time, what's this? Uh, we also have that role to do something about it
Hmm.
and to express things more. But I will say, this is definitely a personal opinion. Is that um, being overly aggressive though, not contributing to the conversation and just saying the other side is bobo,
Hmm.
the other side is wrong. That doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I know there are people that their level of frustration and anger
Hmm.
with the current situation has reached the point where well it just comes out that way, and then
Hmm.
you're engaging in regular flame wars online. um but I just feel like that I don't know if that manner of being vocal will help anything.
Hmm.
It just paints a target on you. It just makes you a citable example of how quote unquote irrational your side is.
Hmm.
And then they just kind of dismiss you. So there's a lot of emotional stuff. So um, Marx has been more vocal on Facebook lately with those Duterte posts. I've had friends message him privately expressing how I should be careful, but don't care too angry. And that's you know
Well, I'll be honest. You still have to be careful.
yeah.
Mm, They get rattled over the smallest things.
And
But
and there are we're not quite in martial law, but then there's still scary stuff that can happen. I guess is what I would say. That's why me, I'm like, be factual.
mm,
Be be factual, be logical. Don't get too heated. Don't make it personal. Don't throw insults
mm,
because it just brings you down to their level, and that's what they want. That's literally what they want to happen. Okay.
my LPM you later.
Yeah. Okay, I saw that. Yeah, yeah. Okay. And then um oh yeah, so CC Jed's observed similar things. How a lot of people have been dragged down to the mudslinging level.
Yeah.
It's and I feel like that becomes toxic. Not just like not that I don't want to offend these other people that you're arguing with, but
Mhm.
then it's like it's not healthy for you, and then to wade in that kind of toxicity and to be spewing that same vitriol out. I mean, I feel like it's bad energy
Mhm.
to sound very new age, semi mystical, but it's bad energy to put out in the world, and um, in the long term, it just makes you feel worse.
Yeah, I forget who posted it. I think was it Mark Boa? Wherein um, apologists are the flat earthers as far as the
Oh, I
political
haven't seen
cycle
that.
is concerned.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
And I was like, oh, that's so true. And they like super feel like they're the ones who understand the truth and the conspiracy.
Okay, so now I want to take a moment to it comes to mind. Can we talk about what a troll really means? Do you have a definition for trolls from
Well,
before?
what I know from trolls before was just they're the people who really, they're just really out there to get people riled up. And
Yes,
it's just really meant for joking. Um,
that's the original
trolling,
internet
yeah,
troll.
because
Yeah.
trolling as a term is that. Um, Those are the people who'll call and ask you, kung tumatakbo yung aircon
I was
mo,
gonna say, is your refrigerator running?
and then when you answer yes, then they'll say di habulin mo, baka lumabas, or sara mo pinto, and this and that. So originally it was a lot of that, and in many ways, um, non-destructive trolling is why meme culture exists.
Yeah,
And
dank posts
it's
and
all
whatnot.
about it's all about making fun of things and finding the humor in the absurd. So how it transformed into this trolling as a political thing was interesting, but then again, that's what they do. They find ways to label their enemies so that it becomes something they can identify with.
Yeah, so that's my challenge too. Like the way that we use the term troll now. Troll is anyone else on the other side
Mhm.
who like talks about stuff other than you, and it's not quite the original intent of the term.
Mm-mm.
But I feel like the mitigation and management of these things is still the same. There is a long running internet statement of don't feed the
Mhm.
trolls. And um, related to like how you respond to people of a different political view. Uh, when you get emotional, when you get riled up, that is literally the feeding.
Mm-mm.
I not feeding trolls is not necessarily the same as not arguing. You can try, but then also know when to cut your losses. Know
Mm-mm.
when the person is not really open to other opinions. Know that that person is probably getting paid to generate this conversation
Mm-mm.
and to stir the pot essentially. Um, it's tricky. And going back to this whole concept of paid, paid opinion, micro influencers,
Mm-mm.
paid whatever.
Ay nako, Noel
It's a lot.
mentioned a Malate friend that defended Tony's interview. A number of Malate friends, I use the word loosely, are apologists.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't respond to them anymore.
I've unfriended many. That doesn't mean like I don't
Mm.
need this connection in my life.
Especially when I have nothing better to give you but these words.
Okay, so quote. Terry Patrick quote. Okay, will this fit? Yeah, no. Okay, but the full quote goes, I'll just read it off the comment because the screen can't show it. But the original Terry Pratchett quote goes, "It was so much easier to blame it on them, capital T. It was bleakly depressing to think that they, capital T, were us, capital U. If it was them, capital T, then nothing was anyone's fault. If it was us, then what did that make me, capital M? After all, I'm one of us, capital U. I must be. I've certainly never thought of myself as one of them, capital T. No one ever thinks of themselves as one of them. We're always one of us. It's them that do the bad things." It's from Jingo by Terry Pratchett. And again, it's like, and funny because Jingo is a piece on like war and xenophobia,
Mhm.
but not but everything kind of applies to politics anyway.
Mhm.
And it's a thing. It's like I know there are many people that have become like fighting the good fight. They feel or they feel obliged to like reply to every single person who
Mhm.
espouses certain opinions on Twitter. And like if you have the time for it and the brain
Yeah, I
capacity, I mean,
respect
sure.
those who are able to handle that because that takes a lot of mental stamina as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You know the people you're responding to practically won't even bother to read what you have to say, but you're still trying to reach out and explain things. So I respect the people who do that.
But me, I will just advise, yeah, pick your battles.
Yeah.
Pick your battles. And like I get it if you're dealing with people you actually know and
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to like convince, persuade people in your actual social circles.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're really going out trying to hunt people down, I don't know if the rewards are really worth it.
And
Like I would just block these people.
and um, it always matters. It always is important that you are still self-critical even as you criticize others.
Mm-mm.
If you aren't paying attention to how you're doing it, then you're already more than not, on the verge of being what you're arguing against.
Then you become the troll as you
Mhm.
fight the trolls, so to speak.
And that's not, the best way to handle it. At least in a personal level, that's how I view it. If you're gonna win by being the troll, then you still lost.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. And it's hard. It's hard.
Mhm.
I mean, like, it's so much easier not to get involved. It's so much easier not to rock the boat. It's so
Mhm.
much easier not to pick arguments with friends. And it's like, what can you do, right? Because especially with social media, you're connected to a lot of people that aren't necessarily like your friends.
Mhm.
You have a lot of acquaintances. You have a lot of people you've met once. You have a lot of people you've only met drunk.
Mhm.
Um, and then
And the truth is, it's not always just ignorance. For many, it's pride. They've
mm-mm,
invested far too long in stating this perspective or in defending this side. They'd rather not accept the truth that they're now realizing they may have been wrong.
they can't back down.
So they'd rather just ride it out and be with the others still saying it, but secretly just go, "Oh, what the hell am I doing?"
Mm-mm. So yeah, I mean, like, and especially if people want, I don't know, if especially, I know there are a lot of people like already talking about they want to volunteer for this or that person's political campaign, because they candidates they believe in, candidates who haven't even announced they're running or not,
Mhm.
which is fine. But then I feel like, but then the challenge though is like if you really want to convince other people in the long term, you're not gonna do it by calling them stupid. You're not
Mhm.
gonna do it by flinging insults and different kinds. You're going to be have to be a lot more persuasive than that, and that will require going outside of your comfort zone to communicate things.
So to bring the discussion towards some lighter, shallower waters,
Okay,
do you recall political stuff happening back in Friendster?
Friendster? No, because Friendster didn't have a news feed. See, that's the thing that
Yeah, but you don't recall any, like, you visit a friend stuff and it's like, I'm voting, blah blah blah.
not
There
really,
was
eh.
never, it was
Because
really all personal expression.
and kasi what could you really do on Friendster? It was like I think at most you had very colorful testimonials as the regular updates on
Mhm.
a page, and then maybe some photos. But because there was no news feed type experience,
Mhm.
that was the main innovation of Facebook.
Yeah.
By introducing the news feed, they created something for us to look at other than a person's profile.
But in the hookup social circle groups, there was political campaigning already happening.
Dare I ask you for examples?
You'd have stuff talking about who they'll be voting, and then I don't want to hook up with anyone who's like that or who's.
I feel that's still more now than before. But then again, online hookups were hard before. Like, hey, so I'm going to use my browser based dating platform to like message people so that we can arrange for an in-person meeting with no assurance that you're going to show up. So I don't think political discourse comes up as often. I see it more now in like, uh some people who are trying to make it their brand that they're like this. Then you'll
Mm-hmm.
see dating profiles that mention and then like no DDS or no Dilaw or whatever. So and that's cool. It's very trite. It's very trite. I just feel like it's a personal branding exercise. Um Whatever. I mean, like, it's important, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, but really, I don't know if people really live up to it or like really stand by it in the long term. Because sex is sex. That's sad, but it is. Especially if it's like no strings, anonymous. I'm not going to see you ever again type
Mm-hmm.
encounters. I really don't think they're going to be 100% selective of political alignment. Yeah. Okay. Um. Weird friendster comments. My shares live journal back then was more finding people who like the same shows franchises as you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then live journal did had a pseudo newsfeed experience because you could go to your quote unquote friends page where it would put all the blog updates of your friends in chronological order with the
Mm-hmm.
most recent on top. So then you could catch up on the blogs of people you connected with, which was
Mm-hmm.
like a nice little thing. It was a nice little proto social media thing before like Facebook.
And I guess that's the price of how information is now freely shared.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with the early years of the internet and information being something you can access, there was a lot of fear of I have to make sure the stuff I put out there is accurate, or else
Yes.
I know I'll be eaten alive. They will all judge what I wrote as
Citation
this and that
needed.
and it. But then the people who did have something good to say now were very extra careful. So it took so long for them to get their stuff out.
Yeah.
Then you had the other hand of people who didn't really care and just kept spewing out all this misinformation, this stupid assumptions, and this and that. And that's where we are now, a world filled with a lot of crap that's out there, and new generations showing up, finding them, and going, well, there's so many talking about it. I guess it must be true.
Yeah. Yeah, the especially as we got into smaller and quicker updates
Mhm.
on social media, then this emphasis has been on speed and expediency than careful thought and
Mhm.
research. And platforms are trying to catch up and trying to put a little controls and like, hey, did you read the article before you shared it and all that. But it's still a long ways to go. It doesn't stop people from saying
Mhm.
whatever they want to
And then
say.
it doesn't help that information that is valid and important and useful tend to be placed behind paywalls. So
Yes.
you have a lot of scientific journals, academic
Or
papers.
even just
You
the
have
New York
Yeah,
Times.
you have a lot of news outlets, which sadly the truth is they need money. They're still a business.
Yes.
So they're behind paywalls. I've known a lot of times I found sorry I've had a lot of times I found myself, searching for something specific. Oh, links, articles, then click. You must be a subscriber to read this, and I'm like, I only wanted that article, so I don't really feel like I should pay for it. So I end
Yeah.
up not doing so, and it basically in the end it tells you the model doesn't work. Hiding it behind the paywall doesn't mean they'll end up subscribing. That just means they'll try to find it somewhere else.
Or just give up finding it and just use
Mm-mm.
whatever information is readily
Yes.
available, which may not be as well researched or vetted as this secret thing that has
Mm-mm.
been hidden
And
behind
then, in
whatever.
as much as we'd like to try to showcase that, yeah, but if you make it free and then just have the community pay when they want to, it will work. Look, it worked for blah blah blah. Look, it worked for. But all those people either have already established circles of influence or already have a lot of, um, dare I say, networked followers, because that's a big thing now on the internet. And I don't say that with bad implications, although it has been abused for bad things. Wherein you have like-minded people who will join together in order to make sure they like each other's stuff,
Mm.
and they generate buzz for each other. So more people then keep joining, and sometimes they mistake their circle as the community or as
Yes.
the entirety of the population, because they're hearing each other liking what they like. But it does work because it does, keep things moving both mentally and economically. Um, there is that joke sometimes that, so are we just really passing the money around the same group?
Mm.
But then there are new people who come in and eventually it starts growing. So it's how things work now in the internet, as odd as it is.
So, oh, what's a yawn at this moment? Um, yeah, and then Mark cites things like Babelfish from Hitchhiker's Guide.
Hmm.
The Yeah, I used to, as a Star Trek fan, I'm a big believer in the democratization of
Hmm.
information. And yet, yeah, we haven't gotten there. But at the same time, we also haven't fully democratized information because the fact that, yeah, the more credible stuff is now hidden behind paywalls, and there has to
Hmm.
be a better way to deal with this. And I don't have a solution for it,
And
but
it,
it means that there are greater institutions that need to fund these things rather
yeah.
than them relying on individual
But at the same
subscribers.
time, it's hard because, what do we want? I
Mm.
mean, are we looking for, so only verified, valid facts are out there? So does that mean whenever you make something, it has to go through a process before
Yeah.
it'll ever see
Then
the
you
light of
stifle
day?
opinion and free
Yeah.
speech.
Are we looking at now every video that you submit to YouTube will go through a process of verification and the like? So even if you're just going to make a video that will greet your grandmother it might take 2 weeks before it goes on the line. Diba?
And then it's
It's
still
hard. Eh?
and it's the challenge of then who's verifying these things,
Yes.
and is it still a human sitting in front of it?
Mm-mm.
Is it, even if it's an algorithm, who programmed the algorithm? What were the
Mm-mm.
assumptions? What were the inherent biases introduced into the system?
So, in as
It's
much as a lot of people are saying, the system doesn't work, destroy the system, the medical institution is just out to make our money, don't trust doctors, and this and that. Yes, there is facts that many of them have made decisions that are intended to make them more money. But in the end, they do still have checks and balances that give you some level of security compared to just some stranger finding some obscure unknown thing all the other rest of the experts in the world never noticed on YouTube.
yeah. So a lot of frustrating things.
And worms.
What? What do you hit worms?
I will PM you later, man.
Okay. So, um, to sort of wrap this up, because I think we can only talk about this for so long without feel like we're going in circles and
Well,
going
I
nowhere.
think new media. Define then new media beyond social media.
Um, okay, social media is one aspect, but
Yeah.
then you have other ways of interacting, which includes even just groups,
Mm-hmm.
your digital messengers.
Mm-hmm.
We now have audio spaces
Mm-hmm.
as a common thing. So you have
Mm-hmm.
these shared rooms where you can talk,
Yeah.
and then but then after you're done, it disappears.
Yeah. And then we can't ignore, yes, it's a hype word coming up.
Buy more.
We can't ignore the metaverse. So the tech industry is
Mm.
all going gaga over this new term called the megaverse. The metaverse. And the basic premise behind the metaverse is, yes, it's like VR or it's like AR, with the difference being you're not there just to do that thing. Meaning, um, when you talk VR, it's so you're gonna go VR. What you're gonna do? I'll play this game because that's the VR. Or I'm using VR because I'm having sex with this person abroad. It's
Okay.
just a VR thing. The concept of the metaverse is you're on VR. Period. So what are you gonna do? Whatever you want. Because while you're there, you can work, you can date, you can order your food. The idea being, it's like saying you're going to go online.
Okay.
So that's the big tech thing now that everyone's waiting. No, not waiting, but everyone's rushing to see who will create the effective metaverse. And the fact that we're all stuck at home is
Mm,
like that right ground for it.
that is true.
So you have certain companies that are now investing super on, this is now affordable VR and ganyan. You have others who are trying to do it browser based. Na parang it's on your web browser, but oh look, you now navigate as if it's 3D space the entire time. And while you're there, look, it's integrated to Facebook, it's integrated to email, it's ganyan. Um, so that's the metaverse. And can you imagine if they utilize that in politics as well? You might have one-on-one meetings with the politicians. Of course, it's all algorithms and masks
There's
and
no
stuff.
guarantee that yeah, you're
Yeah.
talking to the
But
politician. Yeah.
can you imagine someone logging online and oh my God, kausap ko si ganyan, and that's the metaverse coming up.
Yeah. So yeah. So I think so for me, like I feel like we can sort of let's wrap up.
Mm-mm.
And sadly, because Toby has to get
Mm.
back to work. Um um
Sadly,
so I will stress that uh
stress.
that you need to look at things that you see online with a
Mm-mm.
critical eye,
Mm-mm.
and we'll just continue to call and make this call to people to
Mm-mm.
please think twice about anything you interact with online, which
Mm-mm.
means that when you can, please try to verify it with alternate sources, even if these are, and try to get a variety just to see,
Mm.
just to compare and contrast how different people report about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Just
to
because you're emotionally attached or connected or reactive to something you see immediately, try to stop, take a breath, and look back. Sometimes you want to react because see I was right, or sometimes you want to react because how dare they? Just to bring it back to the closing, with the Tony thing, a
Mhm.
friend posted that there was that now a ganyan for Channel 4 ganyan. And when I saw that, I was fuming.
Yeah,
But then I realized it was the Philippine Char
Yeah,
It's a satire site.
yeah, or at least a not a news site.
Yeah, and when I saw that, I was like, "Oh wow, that was deadly. That could have caught me." But then
Mm-mm.
I realized my friend who did post it
Was caught.
was caught and was all, "Grabe kaya naman pala, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, and I don't know if it took it down,
Yeah.
but it's that.
So yeah, look with a critical eye.
Mm-hmm.
Check your sources. Check what is shared.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then think three, four, or five times before you choose to share it,
Mm-hmm.
or to share anything really, and think about what you're really trying to say,
Yeah.
and what, I guess, what your message is and what you're hoping to convey, because it's not just enough to say I needed to vent. I need to, because again, like we've been stressing all throughout this episode, we all have a certain responsibility for the influence we do exert
Yes.
within our social circles, and you have to think about what you put out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
um what's this? um
Check your lipstick, according to Noel.
okay. And uh and communicate like an adult with other human beings, even if they're treating you like crap. But as you know, you have to try, and it's hard, I know, but I will say that you have to, I will strongly advocate a need to maintain the moral high ground,
Mm-hmm.
to argue based on facts, based on reason, to argue based on truth, and not get sucked into the mudslinging, the
Mm-hmm.
insults and stuff, because you're not gonna win.
And the long term, there will be times you will not win in terms of getting the truth out.
Mm,
It's not true that the truth always prevails in the end.
yeah, and
But at
yeah.
least you will, close the door in that moment thinking, I still kept my virtues. I still kept to myself. I still did not lose myself in that moment. I may have lost that challenge or that battle, but I still was true to myself.
Mm-mm. Yeah, you can't lose yourself in this social media morass,
Mhm.
muddiness, and whatnot.
And worse, you might
Actually,
you might find yourself thinking you're still just doing what's right, but in deeper scrutiny you realize you're just really doing it because it's your next hot take.
ooh, ooh, is that a hot take on hot takes?
And once you reach that line, things have changed.
Yeah. So I think we're all gonna need to steel ourselves emotionally, mentally for the coming election season. We're gonna see a lot of nasty stuff, and try to keep your heads. Try to stay focused on what's more important, and especially if you're going to go into the trenches and try to fight for candidates that you believe in, which is what you really should be doing in an election
Mhm.
period. Just be ready to get a lot of crap, be ready for a lot of crap that makes no sense. And because it makes no sense, remember also that it's not about you personally. Let it slide past. You said your piece, because as much as you're not going to convince probably 9 out of 10 of people who are of an opposing
Mhm.
political view, you might still convince the one,
Mhm.
and that's what you got to stick out for.
Mhm.
Especially, if when you're trying to fight for what you believe is right and what you are passionate about, then you got to keep trying but not lose yourself in the end. Tall order, but I think you can do it. So I believe in you.
Vote for Tom Bob Matil. That's our show
What?
for tonight.
How did we get back to Tom Bombadil?
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you had a lot of fun because we did.
Tom Bombadil. For questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, all Toby No Shade, RG Suniko.
You could also check out our blog, baduypray.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
So feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know what you think about new media. What do you think about this whole situation? And I don't think we ultimately is like, I think what we're saying is that with this, our online discourse is not going to ever become apolitical. That
Mhm.
there's going to be some degree of politics. It's
Mhm.
just a question of how you manage it. And be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky,
And I'm Toby.
and
And
this
this
is
is
Baduy
Baduy
Pride.
Pride.
Good luck to us all. Good night, everyone. Uh,